Okay, this video is a little late, but you're gonna have to get over it. I have no idea how long this video is gonna be, but I can only imagine that it's not gonna fit in an Instagram reel. But we are halfway through the year, and holy fuck. As you see by the title, we are continuing our series of talking about 2024 in its entirety. If you want to look at the first episode where I recap the first 3 months, you can click the iCard here or here, somewhere up here. Now, do keep in mind that this is part 2, so we're going to be talking about every month from January to June. July won't be on here. If you want to hear me talk about July, make sure you subscribe so you can watch next week's episode of Let's Talk About Last Week, my new show that I do weekly. Because this episode took so much longer, the next episode is going to be an entire recap of the month of July before we go back into weekly segments. So subscribe, like, comment, do all the YouTube things. And here we go. Before we get started, do keep in mind that this is mostly America. There are going to be some worldly things, that I talk about, but it is 90% American because I'm an American. And also, I'm going to do it slightly different. In the first episode, we did it in like chronological order, so January 1st, January 2nd, January 3rd, all the way through. This time, I'm going to make sure all of the events I list are in order, but they're broken up into segments. So if you don't want to hear about like celebrity news, you can skip that, or you don't want to hear about politics, you can skip that. Look at the bar at the bottom. I broke it up into chapters, or go to the description. There is one, what I consider very important section that I think everybody, regardless on what you want to hear, everybody should look, so make sure you look for that. Regardless, I've yapped long enough, so here we go, starting very heavy with politics. So starting off January 24th, Texas threatened to secede, as they do every year. However, this time they had the support of a lot of southern states. They had the support of every southern state except for Virginia. Basically, they were telling the United States government to secure the border on Texas because there were massive amounts of illegal immigration happening. And the United States government simply was not helping with that at all. And they were actively denying Texas the ability to secure their border. However, just less than a month later, on February 13th, Secretary of Homeland Security Alejandro Mayorkas was impeached for, and quote, willful and systematic refusal to comply with the law. Basically on the grounds that he allowed the border to be unsecure on purpose. Moving on to a little bit later in the month, United States Airman Aaron Bushnell lit himself on fire in front of the U.S. Embassy of Israel in D.C. for the protest of the war going on. This happened on February 25th. He did later succumb to his injuries because he lit himself on fire. And unfortunately, his protest didn't do too much because on March 2nd, the United States had officially aligned themselves with the state of Israel. On March 4th, the Trump versus Anderson court case overturned the Trump versus Griswold court case, basically stating that it was not legal for a state to block a candidate from the presidential ballot, because there were a few states that wanted to not have Donald Trump on the ballot at all. On March 7th, President Joe Biden gave his third State of the Union address. And then on March 9th, the state of Utah changed their state flag after 113 years. On March 28th, Virginia Senator Glenn Youngkin vetoed a bill that would allow the state to legalize marijuana. And then on April 17th, Columbia University makes history, but not in a great way. A pro-Palestinian protest basically had the New York leadership send in the police and the military and the state whatever, the state militia. And it was the first time that the university had allowed the police to interfere and arrest and stop protest at, the campus since the Vietnam War, which, if that tells you anything about the situation, but I'm sure that was the end of it, and we won't hear any more bad news from that. On April 18th, the United States vetoed Palestine's request to join the United Nations. And a real quick side note, as an American, a lot of foreigners tend to be like, oh, Americans, you think you're so intelligent and smart and powerful, you're so much better than the rest of us. I don't know why I'm making it French, but...
French-born American.
But, you then have the United Nations all in agreement, but the United States of America can reject all of that. And you want us to think that we're not super important? Like, I'm fairly certain that when that whole situation came out, the United States was one of, like, 5 countries that did not want the Palestinians to become part of the United Nations. And that was it. It was like 95 to 5 or some ridiculous number like that. But the United States holds so much weight that we were able to deny all of that. And you want us to think that we're not the most important country? But anyways, 2 days later, the House of Representatives passed a bill that would send $95 billion from the U.S. to Ukraine, Israel, and Taiwan. Not sure where we got $95 billion from, but we got it, and we're sending it away. And then on April 24th, that bill was signed, the foreign aid package, and at the bottom of that, they snuck in the TikTok ban, which, of course, many Americans were very upset about. The bill basically saying that if ByteDance, the parent company for TikTok, does not sell themselves to a United States company, that the United States will simply block out all the servers of TikTok, from everywhere. So TikTok would not be accessible to any device on a United States network. 2 weeks later, though, ByteDance then sued the United States government for passing this bill on the grounds that this is against the company's First Amendment rights. There haven't been any updates on that, but I imagine there will be by the end of the year. On April 30th, Donald Trump gets a gag order attached to him during his court trial because he wouldn't stop talking. On May 2nd, the state of Florida banned lab-grown meat. On May 3rd, over 2,000 people were arrested at Columbia University for the Palestinian protest. And it comes up again because 3 days later, the campus canceled the graduation. The main Columbia University graduation was canceled due to the amount of people at these protests. Which, like, imagine you didn't get a graduation for COVID in high school, and then you're like, it's fine, I'll go to college and I'll get a big graduation, and then you also don't get a graduation there. I would hate everything. I'd probably become the Grinch, honestly. The Grinch! On May 10th, the United States once again denies the Palestinians of becoming part of the United Nations. On May 11th, Minnesota adopted a new state flag. On May 14th, Tennessee Governor Bill Lee, not Billy, but Bill Lee is his name, he passed a bill saying that all defendants that were convicted of child rape are to be executed. And then on May 30th, Donald Trump is found guilty on 34 felony accounts of business illegal activities. That also makes him the first president ever in the history of ever to be convicted of a felony. On June 6th, Russia officially declares United States as an enemy of the state of Russia. On June 11th, Hunter Biden is convicted of his 3 felonies. On June 17th, Maryland Governor Wes Moore pardoned over 175,000 individuals who were convicted of small marijuana possessions. On June 17th, the United States automates the draft again, so every male ages 18 to 26 are now eligible to be drafted into the military. They've also hinted at the fact that they want to start drafting women ages 18 to 26 as well. On June 19th, Louisiana required that the 10 Commandments are posted in every single classroom in the state, and I'm sure that went very well for them. On June 26th, President Joe Biden pardoned thousands of former service military members that were convicted during the Don't Ask, Don't Tell period of the military. And a quick rundown of presidential candidates. Chris Christie dropped out on January 10th, followed by Vivek Ramaswamy on the 15th. Asha Hutchinson's dropped out on the 16th, followed by Ron DeSantis on the 20th. Marianne Williamson's dropped out on the 17th of February. Nikki Haley dropped out on March 6th, leaving Donald Trump to be the sole runner for the Republican Party. Mitch McConnell announced that he was stepping down as the Senate Republican leader on February 26th. And Dean Phillips dropped out of the presidential race on March 6th, leaving current President Joe Biden to be the sole runner for the Democratic Party. This, of course, led to current President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump to be at the presidential debate on June 27th, the first presidential debate, which was, of course, held in high regard with all the American citizens. Moving on from politics, we go into some more fun stuff real quick before we go back into politics and the world becomes boring again. In some nerd news, January 1st, Mickey Mouse became public domain. Now, this is, of course, very important because Mickey Mouse should have been public domain years ago, but Disney lobbied to Congress for decades to keep Mickey Mouse from going into the public domain. On January 19th, Pal World dropped, and that was super controversial. There was a lot of stuff to do with AI, and it had a lot of backlash, but a lot of people were having fun playing it. On January 23rd, the Sandy Cheeks movie was leaked online, and everyone saw it. February 2nd, the Suicide Squad game, Suicide Squad Killed the Justice League, was dropped, and that was, of course, met with much love from the community. On February 14th, the Fantastic Four MCU edition, the casting was announced, and that was also met with no controversy whatsoever. The same day, Madam Web dropped, which, of course, was met with so much controversy, I can't even pretend that it didn't, which a lot of people are assuming that is why Marvel decided to release the Fantastic Four casting announcements and Deadpool 3's trailer around the same time, just to negate the backlash they were getting for Madam Web. They also, a few weeks later, released every single Spider-Man back into the theaters. February 22nd, Netflix's Avatar: The Last Airbender released, and yeah, no controversy there. Not from me, of course. Whoa. March 1st, Dune 2 dropped, and many people were praising it. It was apparently very good. I still haven't seen it. I don't care. Also, on March 1st, Wizards Beyond Waverly Place was announced. That will have Selena Gomez and David Henry return in their respective roles for the old Disney Channel show. Yes, it is an old show. We're old now. Get over it. On March 6th, Rooster Teeth shut down. And then March 10th, Oppenheimer swept the Oscars. On March 15th, the American Society of Magical Negroes dropped, and that did so bad that they ended up pulling it from theaters after like 2 weeks. However, Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey 2 dropped on March 18th and debuted with 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. It was also announced that they would be making more movies in that style, creating the Twisted Childhood universe, which if you want to see how I feel about it, go click the iCard to where I talk about my personal vendetta against Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey. On March 20th, X-Men 97 debuted, and that dropped with, I believe, 100% on Rotten Tomatoes, and many people enjoyed that. So much so where it got renewed for 2 more seasons, and I'm sure nothing bad is going to happen with that, right? 5 days later, Kong vs. Godzilla debuted, and many people enjoyed that. However, April 2nd, Funimation shut down, and obviously people weren't happy about that. And the Nintendo Network followed in their footsteps, shutting down just a few days later on April 9th. However, on April 22nd, Jacksepticeye released his line of comic books published by Bad Egg, which is Critical Voices publication company. And between like May 10th and June 4th, we got the announcement for the cast of Knives Out 3. Many people were enjoying that. That has a completely star-studded cast. On June 7th, Bad Boys 4 debuted, and that broke box office numbers. On June 13th, Dwayne Johnson's production company, 7 Bucks Studios, was acquired by Disney. And on June 24th, we had a bunch of leaks of Superman Legacy photos. And then on June 30th, Inside Out 2 surpassed $1 billion in the box office, making it the fastest animated movie to ever reach $1 billion. Now, this could be seen as both good and bad. The summer box office was expected to highly underperform. However, both Bad Boys 4 and Inside Out 2 broke box office numbers. However, these were both sequel movies. So while the box office has been underperforming for a significant amount of time now, the sequel movies were the ones that suddenly goes up. And so a lot of people are thinking that studios might be getting the wrong idea with this. Because Inside Out 2 and Bad Boys 4 were able to complete their box office runs. Compared to a lot of these movies that have come out, especially this year being a huge deficit for movies actually staying in theaters. They get pulled out weeks, 2, 3, 4 weeks after they get debuted, and then they suddenly get put onto a streaming service or a digital service or something like that, to where why would you rush to go see a movie when you can just wait a few weeks? The point being that the studios shouldn't be taking this as a lesson that audiences want sequels or audience wants franchises or things of that nature. Audiences just need time to see the movie in the theater. Anyways, cutting into some world news now. February was a leap year. That's kind of the only place that I could put this, but I felt like that was important for 2024. The 2026 FIFA World Cup was announced, and the United States will be hosting the final game. And I'm sure that all of the Americans are going to be super excited about soccer because we respect that sport so much that we call it soccer.
Soccer?
Tucker Carlson interviewed Vladimir Putin on February 8th, and that went at about as well as you could imagine. On March 4th, France became the first country to acknowledge abortion in its constitution, which led to a lot of countries looking at their governments like, France? France? Damn! On March 20th, the World Happiness Report came out, and the United States was absent from the top 20 happiest countries in the world for the first time since the country's history.
Not happy.
Claudia Sheinbaum became Mexico's first ever woman and Jewish president. Not like together, but like she was the first woman president and also is the first Jewish president. That was announced on June 6th that she won the election. I didn't know if I should put this into world news or sport news, so I'm just gonna put this straight in the middle and say that on June 7th, the United States won the World Cup for cricket. Now, this shocked a lot of people because not only did we beat the world champions, but most Americans didn't even know we had a World Cup for cricket, or a lot of Americans don't even know cricket's a sport. It was also revealed that a lot of the members on the United States team for the Cricket World Cup, they had day jobs. That the cricket is their side gig. They're just like spare time, something they do for fun. So that, I'm sure made all the other countries feel very good about themselves. However, in other sports news, Bill Belichick was fired from the New England Patriots after 23 years due to the poor performance the previous season. Kansas City ended up winning the Super Bowl. They won 25-22 in overtime, and it was the second overtime Super Bowl in history. Also, SpongeBob and Patrick hosted the Super Bowl, which is just awesome. Caitlin Clark broke the NCAA Division I record for most points scored in a single career with 3,685 points. And to be clear, this isn't just like women's Division I. This is like all of the Division I. So that's very impressive. South Carolina then won the women's college basketball tournament with a perfect season record of 38 wins and 0 losses. The Boston Celtics then beat the Dallas Mavericks at the NBA Finals. It is their 18th NBA championship, and they now pass the Lakers as the team with the most wins. On June 26th, the NBA draft occurred, and a lot of people were talking about the fact that LeBron James' son, was drafted onto the Lakers. And I'm sure it's because he's a great player and has nothing to do with his father being LeBron James. And on June 26th, the NCAA removed marijuana from their banned drug list. Now, in some kind of depressing bankruptcy news, yes, there's an entire section of bankruptcy. Jo-Ann Stores, known as a lot of places as Jo-Ann Fabrics, they filed for bankruptcy on March 18th after accumulating over $1 billion of debt. On May 2nd, Rue 21, the clothing brand, filed for bankruptcy after only $194 million of debt. Get your money up, Rue. On May 14th, Red Lobster announced their bankruptcy, closing over 100 stores across the nation. And Coach USA files for bankruptcy after accumulating $198 million of debt and liquidating their assets to pay it off. That occurred on June 8th. So next up, let's talk celebrity news. So on January 5th, Gypsy Rose Blanchard got released. We talked about it last time. She was this huge court case. Movies were made about her. She murdered her mom. It was a very big deal. And then on March 10th, she deleted all of her social media, basically saying that social media isn't real life and she just really wanted to have a normal life. Normal in quotes, because it was then announced on March 28th that she was divorcing her then husband. Now, I mentioned in the last episode that she was also rumored to be meeting with her ex-fiance, and my assumptions were correct because on April 30th, they officially got back together. And just a little bit after that, she announced that she was pregnant. On January 7th, the Golden Globes happened, and there was this very large backlash between comedian j.cole and the whole event, basically saying that his comedy just wasn't great, and the jokes that he was making were not fun, they weren't entertaining, the whole thing was just not fun to watch. He went on social media the next day basically saying that it wasn't his fault and that it was the writer's fault because they didn't give him funny jokes. On January 9th, the internet was shook when Matt Pat announced his retirement. He then officially retired 2 months later on March 9th. On January 12th, Ariana Grande released Yes and, which was a huge controversial song that she released. As we talked about last year, she got with Ethan Slater, who is one of her co-stars for the Wicked movie. He was also the Broadway version of SpongeBob. That's not me making the joke. He was actually the Broadway version of SpongeBob. However, Ethan Slater was married to his high school sweetheart, and they had a kid together. And Ariana Grande met the wife and the kid, so it was like a whole big controversy last year. And so a lot of the songs in her new album, Eternal Sunshine, were very, very controversial. Many people saw it as her bragging about the fact that she took Ethan Slater from this woman. On January 15th, the Critics' Choice Awards happened, which had this Ryan Gosling meme created, because I'm Just Ken won the Critics' Choice Award over the Billie Eilish song, What Was I Made For? Which led to a lot of controversy, and I'll link the video that I made about it up here. On January 25th, there was this huge outbreak of internet celebrity nudes that were happening. However, all of the nudes were AI. The biggest one being Taylor Swift, who after some big Twitter accounts got a hold of these images, they started posting them around, and it caused a huge controversy to where Twitter would not let you search up Taylor Swift's name for like a week or something. On January 26th, Ben Shapiro released a rap song with Tom MacDonald, as well as Megan Thee Stallion dropping her album Hiss. Now, in this album, she sort of dissed Nicki Minaj, and Megan and Nicki had been sort of pseudo-beefing for a little bit, nothing really concrete, just words going back and forth. However, this beef was solidified when, after people started listening to the song, one of the lyrics was, "These hoes don't be mad at Megan, these hoes be mad at Megan's Law." Megan's Law, of course, being the federal law that forces sex offenders to be on the registry, and they have to announce themselves to the neighborhood. They have to go around and say, "Hello, I'm a sex offender, I moved into the neighborhood." This is a diss to Nicki Minaj, of course, because Nicki Minaj's husband is a convicted sex offender. On January 29th, Nicki Minaj responded with a terrible lyric in which she rhymed foot with foot, not twice, but 3 times. On February 5th, Drake got his penis leaked online, and I'm sure that's going to be like the worst thing to happen to him this year. On February 13th, YouTuber 2Mad died, which was very controversial because he was a very controversial individual. Streamer Wilbur Scoot got canceled on February 28th after his ex-girlfriend came out stating that he was very abusive sexually and emotionally during their relationship. On March 11th, the YouTuber known as Angry Reactions quit. This was after it was revealed he had a domestic assault charge that was pending. There was a whole court date, but he ended up being innocent of the whole matter. However, he lost so many brand dealerships, friendships, and things of that nature. And of course, his fans were not very supportive of him, he felt. So the whole thing really just broke him, and he just ended up living a normal life, not doing the YouTube or TikTok or anything of that nature anymore. On March 15th, Danielle Bergoli, the Catch Me Outside girl, had a child. On March 17th, Quiet on Set, The Dark Side of Kids TV came out, and it was this huge documentary in which they had a bunch of child stars who worked with Nickelodeon come out, and they talked about their experiences on how bad Nickelodeon was as a network with sexual assault and just, forced labor and things of that. Drake Bell himself came on the thing and was like that he was sexually assaulted during his time on Nickelodeon. On March 22nd, Kendrick Lamar released a song named Like That with Metro Boomin and Future. This started a very large feud between a bunch of different rappers, but specifically with Drake and Kendrick Lamar. But in the song Like That, Kendrick Lamar has a lyric that he says, "Fuck the big 3, it's just big me." Now, at first, this seemed like this might just be a fun little rap beef with j.cole releasing an album called Might Delete Later, in which there was a song called 7 Minute Drill that he then beefed back with Kendrick Lamar. However, after like 3 days, he deleted it and apologized for the whole thing. A lot of people saw this as J. Cole basically bitching out of the whole thing, but as we can see, J. Cole made the right decision backing out when he did. Drake then released 2 songs, one being Push-Ups, which was very well received, and a lot of people were like, wow, Drake can really rap. The second one was not very well received, as he used AI generative vocals for both Tupac and Snoop Dogg. This was eventually deleted because Tupac's estate basically was like, hey, you used AI, what the fuck? But Push-Ups was so well received that a lot of people were assuming that perhaps Drake won this beef because Kendrick wasn't responding. However, all of that changed on April 30th when Kendrick Lamar released a song called Euphoria. This is, of course, a reference to the fact that Drake is a producer for the television show Euphoria. In Euphoria, Kendrick comes after Drake and says that he is not black enough, that he steals black culture, that he's ashamed of the fact that he's half black, and it's a pretty catchy song. And before Drake could even respond, Kendrick responded in another song called 616 in LA. However, on May 3rd, later that same day, Drake released a song called Family Matters, in which he accused Kendrick of beating his wife, in which he talked about a bunch of other rappers that weren't just Kendrick. And Drake had a very heavy hand in this fight. I mean, he actually was beefing back in a very timely manner with very powerful lyrics. And then almost immediately after, the song of the year, Not Like Us, dropped. This was a significantly more lighthearted song, but still directly called out Drake being a pedophile in no unspoken terms. The word pedophile is in the song. On May 5th, Drake tried to respond with a song called The Heart, in which he was basically like, no. And he basically said that he fed Kendrick all of that information and that the secret mode that Kendrick claimed to have was actually on purpose, and that all the information that Kendrick had on Drake was given to Kendrick by Drake, which a lot of people were confused about, because why would you tell someone that you're a pedophile if you're not? Where was the strategy? And that's pretty much all we heard about up until Kendrick released the music video, which we're not going to talk about now because that's in July. In other rap criminal news, on March 25th, Diddy's home was raided. Very famous rapper P. Diddy was basically accused of being a sex trafficker and a bunch of other terrible things, to the point where he literally got his home raided by the Department of Homeland Security. March 29th, Beyonce released a country album, which was met with many mixed reviews, mostly the mixed part coming from country fans who don't like Beyonce. On March 29th, actor Chance Perdomo died in a motorcycle accident. He was the current star of the Gen V television show. On April 5th, JoJo Siwa released a song called Karma's a Bitch, which was met with a lot of backlash, well-deserved backlash that time. On April 10th, Quavo and Chris Brown started beefing for a little bit. However, Quavo's response was met with a lot of disappointment from fans, which basically made Chris Brown the winner of the beef, which is insane because Chris Brown also beats on women. On April 10th, O.J. Simpson died, which was obviously very large news because he'll never understand why the killer did what he did.
OJ!
On April 15th, Logan Paul announced that him and his fiancée are expecting a child. And the same day, Henry Cavill announced that him and his fiancée are having a child. On April 17th, Ryan Garcia, the boxer, announced that he was engaged to porn star Savannah Bond. This was announced an hour after his child from his ex-fiancée or wife or girlfriend or whoever was born. On April 17th, NBA YoungBoy was arrested, which is probably my favorite news story of the year because he got caught up in basically an illegal operation of getting prescription drugs, in which him and his posse were posing as doctors. And the reason why he was called is because the pharmacist asked him a question and he said the word axe instead of ask. On April 18th, this image of Mark Zuckerberg went viral, in which he had a beard. On April 19th, Taylor Swift released her album, The Tortured Poets Department, and it became the most streamed album ever in like the history of ever. Both her as an artist and the album itself became the most streamed album in a single day. And I'm sure she's going to take all of that fame and great success on the, with humility, and she's absolutely not going to release 45 more versions of the same album to stop other famous women from getting on the Billboard chart. She wouldn't do that. On April 19th, the YouTube group known as Watcher announced that they were leaving YouTube to create their own streaming service. And they received so much backlash from this information that 3 days later, on April 22nd, they changed their mind. On April 21st, Andrew Tate announced that having sex with women is gay. On May 6th, the Met Gala happened, and I don't care. On May 8th, Steve Buscemi was hospitalized after getting randomly attacked in New York. He got punched in the face for literally no reason. It was just somebody ran up to him, punched him in the face, and walked away. That was it. On May 23rd, it was announced that Eugene was leaving the Try Guys. They revealed in the announcement video he's actually wanted to leave the Try Guys for some time now, but due to other events, they couldn't. On May 26th, Mike Tyson went to the hospital after an ulcer flare-up. This caused the Jake Paul-Mike Tyson fight to be delayed. It was supposed to happen July 20th, just a few days ago as of me recording this. It is now going to appear on November 15th. Around the middle of June, between about the 7th and the 10th, Young Thug's trial, he has RICO charges against him. That went very viral as the lawyer of Young Thug was sentenced to jail. Basically, the judge had a secret meeting. The judge and the prosecution had a secret meeting with one of the witnesses, and none of Young Thug's team were notified of this secret meeting. And in the secret meeting, the judge threatened the witness that he had to testify, because initially he had pleaded the fifth, but they announced that he had to testify. Otherwise, the judge was going to sentence him to life in prison if he did not testify, which is, of course, illegal. And of course, like I said, Young Thug's team had no knowledge of this meeting. And Brian Steele, Young Thug's lawyer, somehow found out about this information and called the judge out in front of the entire courtroom, in which the judge did not deny any of these accusations. He basically just demanded that Brian Steele tell him where he found out this information from. After refusing to give the judge anything that he wanted to, the judge then sentenced the lawyer to jail for contempt of court, which is not what he could do because that's the lawyer's job. So that went absolutely nowhere. On June 8th, Benny the comic historian passed away in a car accident. This was, of course, very sad for the comic book community. On June 12th, Pat Sajak retired from the Wheel of Fortune after over 40 years of being the host. Also on June 12th, famous NBA player Jerry West died. Now, he was so famous that he is literally the logo for the NBA. On June 18th, Justin Timberlake had a DUI. On June 20th, Don Sutherland passed away. On June 22nd, Dr. Disrespect is outed by a former Twitch employee who said the reason why Dr. Disrespect was banned back all the way back then is that he was messaging minors on Twitch Whispers, which is like Twitch's messaging service. Dr. Disrespect, in fact, came out and agreed that he was, in fact, messaging minors, and yet somehow everybody's okay with it. Not sure why. And on June 25th, actor Bill Cobbs passed away. Now, this section I'm just going to call extra news because I don't really have like categories for this, but they're important to the year of 2024. On January 2nd, Claudia Gay, the first ever black president of Harvard University, resigned, and this was after she was facing backlash for some anti-Semitic remarks she made, as well as allegations that she cheated in basically getting her position. On January 3rd, Epstein's list dropped, and I'm sure that Epstein's Island being such a big topic by so many people, that'll have some sort of consequences. The fact that the list of a lot of important, big, rich, famous people that were on his island, there'll be some sort of consequences for those people. On January 5th, the doors of Boeing Flight 737 fell off mid-flight while they were taking off, And I'm sure that was just a one-time thing that won't have any lasting impact on, the company as a whole. Also on January 5th, this guy jumped a judge. There were aliens in Florida, and this guy got naked and jumped into the fish tank over at Bass Pro Shop. On January 8th, there were Jewish tunnels to secret entrances in synagogues in New York City. On January 25th, the first person to die by nitrogen hypoxia, Kenneth Smith, in Alabama, he was a convicted murderer. That happened. On February 2nd, the Apple Pro Vision was released, and everyone looked really stupid for some time. AT&T had a huge network outage on February 22nd that left a lot of people just simply without phone service for a whole day. On the 24th and the 25th, the Willy Wonka experience happened, and that was depressing. On March 5th, the Louisiana governor, Jeff Landry, adds nitrogen and electrocution as death penalty options. On March 14th, SpaceX launched the most powerful rocket in the history of ever, but it failed in its re-entry to Earth. Boeing CEO Dave Calhoun stepped down on March 25th, and that sure is an awfully big coincidence, isn't it? Richard Slema, a man, was given a genetically modified kidney that was created from a pig, which was a huge breakthrough through scientific discovery and whatnot. On March 26th, the Francis Scott Key Bridge crashed in Baltimore, and it caused a few people to lose their lives. And I'm sure people were very focused on the fact that lives were lost and nothing else, right?
Black people.
No! On April 4th, the second ever person in recorded history to get the bird flu happened after a bird flu cattle outbreak. Also, the largest 3D map of the universe was created in Arizona that day. On April 29th, a man who had cancer for 8 years won the Powerball lottery worth over $1 billion. On May 7th, the Boy Scouts of America announced that they will be changing their name from the Boy Scouts of America to just the American Scouts or the Scouts of America, something of that sort. This is due to the fact that the Boy Scouts are required to let women join their organization. On May 13th, GameStop's stock price randomly jumped up 75%. Also on May 13th, several airlines started suing the United States government, several airlines including Delta, American, and United, because it is now legally required for them to list all of the magical fees that they add into the price of the ticket, which apparently they don't want to do for God knows what reason. On June 12th, Elon Musk started hiding likes on Twitter so you cannot see other individuals' likes anymore on the app. And a week later, he started allowing X-rated content onto the platform. I'm sure that was just a coincidence. On June 14th, Alex Jones is granted the ability to liquidate his personal assets to pay off his legal fees and the money he owes to the families of the Sandy Hook. Note, he is allowed to liquidate his personal assets and not his business assets. On June 18th, NVIDIA passed Microsoft in being the most valuable publicly traded company in the world, as they now are worth $3.34 trillion. Now, this is the important section. This is the one that I think everybody, regardless race, age, gender, political ideology, everyone should listen to this section. Here is every single shooting that has happened in 2024 so far. Mind you, these are just like the ones that I could find by Googling. These aren't the ones that like maybe somebody got mugged on the street or something. No, there are a few stabbings in here, but like I didn't want to have a whole section in which they were stabbings, but just like, yeah. On January 4th, Perry White High School had 4 dead, including the shooter who killed himself. 6 others were injured, and the principal died on January 14th after succumbing to his injuries. 3 shootings took place in Joliet, Illinois, killing a total of 8 people before the shooter fled to Texas, where he then killed himself. This was on January 21st. East Lansdowne had a shooting which killed a family of 6, including the shooter who turned the gun on himself. After setting the house on fire, he also injured 2 police officers in the process. This was on February 7th. On February 11th, 3 random men caused a shooting in Los Angeles County, killing 4 and injuring several others. On February 12th, Mount Eden Avenue in the Bronx killed 1 and injured 5. The Kansas City 2024 parade celebrating the Kansas City win of the Super Bowl, that had a shooting which killed 1 and injured at least 9 individuals. This was, of course, February 14th. The 2024 Burnsville shooting, 2 police officers were killed and 1 firefighter was killed after they responded to a domestic violence call. This ended with the shooter shooting himself in the skull. This was on February 18th. 8 Northeast high school students, they were shot at a drive-by in Philadelphia. This was March 8th. On March 10th, 5 people were killed during a mass stabbing in a murder-suicide in Honolulu in Hawaii. March 16th, Fallstown, Pennsylvania, a man shoots 3 people and steals a car before traveling to New Jersey, in which he then proceeded to take hostages. On March 27th, 4 people are killed and several others are injured after a mass stabbing in Rockford, Illinois. On April 6th, 2 people are killed and 7 others are injured in a mass shooting in Doral, Florida. April 12th, a Minnesota man stabbed and killed a teen. He injured 4 in the process. In Charlotte, North Carolina, 4 police officers and 1 gunman are killed with 4 others injured. On April 29th, there's a Minneapolis shooting. A police officer and a civilian are killed. Another officer with 3 other people are wounded. The shooter was also killed on May 30th. And on June 15th, 9 people are injured in a shooting in Detroit, the Rochester Hills. 4 people are killed and 9 other are injured in a grocery store shooting in Arkansas on June 21st. Now, I read that verbatim in my notes because I wanted to do that in one take. Because did you see how long it took me to say every single one of those shootings? That is a problem. Regardless if you want to blame it on the weaponry or the mental health or whatever you want to talk about, there seems to be a disconnect with humanity as a whole, and that's sad. That's really sad. The fact that several people were killed, not just, hurt or injured or whatever, several people were killed based on whatever evidence you want to bring up. As humans, we have a problem. As Americans specifically, we have a problem. That's not to say that there aren't other issues in other places of the world, but as Americans, we need to come together and help everyone. If you know someone who is struggling, or you know someone who could be potentially going off the deep end, or anything of that nature, please help that individual. There's no reason why that should have taken me that long. Help each other and help yourself. If you know you're going to do something wrong, don't make others suffer. Go get help. Everyone wants to see you better. Whether it be your mom, your dad, your grandma, nobody wants to know that their friend, child, sister, brother ended the lives of several people because they were afraid to reach out. Somebody wants to help you. I promise you. It might not seem like it. There's 8 billion people in this world. Somebody wants to help you. I swear to God. And with that being said, that ends this long-ass video. It's definitely going to take me forever to edit this. I hope that you guys enjoy. Let me know if I missed anything. Let me know if there's something that I need to add to the list. And of course, like I said, subscribe because I'll be recapping all of July because obviously with this video being so long, I missed the entirety of July for the Let's Talk About Last Week series. So we're going to talk about all of July and then we'll go back into weekly segments in the beginning of August. Yeah, July, August, yeah. And as always, my name is Dion. You can call me IsBe. And I'm